Now write this down. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great.
Alright, so that podcast I was listening to, which I like listening to almost every single day, is called The Quote of the Day Show. So if you want to look it up, go ahead. It basically comes out with quotes every single day that you can listen to. That is good for mind focus and everything else that gets your mind started right in the first part of your day, which is always a good quality to have because everybody's usually going to some kind of electronic or something first thing they wake up, and then everything they see on the electronic is usually almost 90% sure is always negative stuff, which doesn't really put your mindset in the right spot. So that's why I like listening to stuff like that in the morning. Gets my mind started really on the right track. But basically, Les Brown was on here saying that basically if you want to do something in your life, just go ahead and start it. No matter what, it might not be great, it might not be perfect, just start it. He's saying what Les Brown basically was saying is anything worth doing is worth doing badly until you get it right. Rather than what we're always taught is basically anything is worth doing is always worth doing right. Which that never is really true because we never do anything right the first time. So over time we always get better at something that we do. So basically that's a good quote that I like because usually it's always some kind of scarcity that stops someone from doing something just because they don't get it right the first time. With that being said, what that leads me to saying is basically today I'm about to take my Nasm. I know I'm going to pass. I will pass. I failed the first time. That doesn't mean stop. Right now I'm going to pass in about an hour. I take it at 9. And I'm saying to you guys that yes, I failed the first time. No, I'm not going to fail the second time because I'm confident enough to say it. So we're going to get this done and you're going to watch me get it done. And I would appreciate a thumbs up after I pass because you know your boy really needs it because I'm gonna be so happy that I don't know how to act. But yeah, if you're new to my channel, please hit that like and subscribe button and enjoy the day. Okay, so I am back home from my test. And as I said, man, the boy is now certified. So, let y'all see that real quick. Yeah, I passed my test. So, I figured, I had a couple friends. One friend, wife told me that he was going to take it next week. And then the other, probably sometime in January or February. I believe it was February, but it intrigued me to do this video right now. That's just for all those people out there who are looking to take a Nasm and want to know little tips and tricks or whatever you want to call it and how I actually studied to pass it. So this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna give y'all some pointers. Try not to make it boring, but at the same time try to give you as many or as much advice I can say that I've told them from my experience with the Nasm test. So I'll give you the rundown of the test and how it's actually applied. So your basic and applied sciences and nutritional concepts, that'd be 17% of your test. So it's still a good large portion of it and something that you need to study over. Assessments, I should say, will be 18% of your test. Program design and exercise technique and training instructions, that'll be the bulk of your test. So basically, your basic and applied sciences and nutritional concepts will be 70% of your test. The assessments portion of it, which is domain 2, if you do go through the study guide, and that is about 18% of your test. Also, domain 3 is program design, which is 21% of your test, so it's a large portion of it. And then also your domain 4, which is exercise techniques and training instructions, which is 22% of your test, so another bulk of your test. Then you have domain 5 and 6, which is client relations and behavioral coaching and professional development and responsibility, which the client relations and behavioral coaching is about 12%, and then the professional development is about, and responsibility is about 10%. So not really a big portion of it, but still it's stuff to study over just in case, and good stuff to know as well. I mean, all of it's stuff to know. So how I studied, which is, I went through all the chapters. I went through the self-study guide, which is mainly just the book. So if you have this book, then it's a 6th edition. So I think that's what they'll be doing for the next few months. I don't know when they actually change it up, but that's what I've studied, the 6th edition. So with that being said, I went through every chapter as I could and highlighted, take notes. As you can see, I'll show you real quick. Basically, I made my book like a highlighter marker, basically, because almost every single page I wrote down notes. As you can see, I have so much stuff highlighted in this book. It's ridiculous, but I mean, at the same time, it's good stuff to know. But I've studied a lot of stuff as far as chapters 1 through 5, done all that, which that is good stuff to learn. That's just like the beginning basics of personal training and knowing the body, which basically it goes up to everything with the heart, knowing your left and right ventricles, and then which ones as far as like stroke volume and cardiac output and all that other stuff like that. Also just knowing how the blood moves and excuse me, the veins and arteries, what they do, all that stuff. I didn't really see it too much on my test though, so I wouldn't really put a focal point on that, or focus I should say, but I still would learn it just in case. I'm not saying don't learn it, because it's stuff you need to know, because you never know, your test might be different than mine. Also, as it goes into chapter 4, like it talks about bioenergetics, talks about your glucose, your glycogen, your fats, your triglycerides, your proteins, your gluconeogenesis, which is basically your last resort going into starvation mode. Basically, when you have deprived of carbs and fats, the last thing your body goes to is the proteins, which basically goes through a process of gluconeogenesis. So that's stuff to learn. I didn't see that on my test as well, but it may come up. So like I said, just know a lot of stuff that you could learn in this book and just drill it in your head. Also, as far as energy wise, your body goes into what the process we call ATPPC systems, or glycolysis systems, and your oxidative systems. Which your ATP system is always, when you first start out, is about 10 to 15 seconds of training, or just like your energy levels, and then you go into glycolysis when you go longer than that, and then as far as when you reach like 2 minutes or above or something like that, you go into your oxidative, which is good to know. Then like chapter 5, just basically your motor behaviors, motor control, your motor learnings, and then you have just other stuff, proprioception stuff, muscle synergies, and then just like your internal and external feedback stuff. Now, when it goes into chapter 6, this is really when you need to start focusing primarily on stuff, because that'll be your assessments, program designs, and exercise techniques. Everything after that is pretty much going into assessments, program designs, exercise techniques, and training instructions, blah blah blah, which is very important stuff, because that's going to be the bulk of your test basically, because it goes from 18%, 21%, and 22%, and then it drops off to 12 to 10% of your test. So I would say anything after chapter 6, which I believe when it really starts off to go, is really focus on stuff, which basically your subjective and objective stuff. Then you have to know what's the difference between subjective and objective. Usually subjective is when you talk about something from a doctor, like if your client has something from a doctor that's already diagnosed, that's stuff that your client should let you know, and stuff that you won't really assess. And then your objective stuff is all the stuff that you basically assess with your client. So that's kind of like stuff to keep in mind. Like I said, I have so much highlight stuff in here, and questions, well not questions, but notes. I write in my books. I don't know if anybody else does that on earth, but I write in my books. I don't actually write in paper notes. I write in my book, so that way I like to open the book, and if I highlight it, it's something important to me, and I usually leave a note with it. That's how I learn. That's how I learn and focus. So that's just me. And then you need to learn. One thing I actually saw on my test was there was this one question, which what do beta blockers do? And basically that lowers your heart rate and blood pressure. So that's something good to know too, just learning a chart. It has a chart on, if you have the book, it has a chart on 115, page 115, and it shows you what beta blockers do, calcium channel blockers, nitrates, diuretics, and all the other stuff. So, and it also tells you what they do. Then it goes into radio, and I don't know how to say that word, the carotid pulse, which one is more optimal to use, which is usually the radio. And well, I shouldn't say usually, it is. And where to place your fingers and stuff like that, know how to do it. Then another thing is learning the heart rate training zones. So zone 1, 2, and 3, which I don't know what's the easiest way I actually learned that is, or focused on learning that is, I don't know. But if you can learn from zone 1 being 65 to 75, and then zone 2 being 76 to 85, and then zone 3 being 80 and above, basically. Not 80 and above, but 86 and above, like 86 and 95. And that's just some things I remember. I don't really know how I studied that or drilled it in my head, but I did, which it comes in handy on my test because I saw a lot of stuff like that on my test. Then learning the difference between, sorry this is a lot, but learning the difference between bioelectrical impedance and underwater weighing, learning the difference between those. Then also learning where your locations for body fat assessments or body fat locations would be, calculating that, which is the biceps, triceps, subscapular, and iliac crest. Where are they on your body? You just have to really just go through this book. I can go on and on stuff like that, which is so much. It's so much to actually say in a video, because this video might turn into freaking 5 hours. But it's just primary stuff like that. Just learning all of it, learning as much as you can learn. As far as like going up to your tests, you can't really take too much tests, like practice tests in your on your online course, basically. And then the book, learning that, reading that. I've actually read through this book like twice. Also, another big thing is learning exercises, learning different type of exercises and what category they go to. And another thing that helped me out is my wife. She's actually took the Nasm and she's passed it as well. She actually made it easier for me to actually comprehend it. As far as like, shout out to my wife. I'll put her channel below. One thing you can actually kind of go off of is pretty much anything with the stability ball will be in your stabilization. You also want to learn how to stretch your tight, overactive and underactive joints. Well, not joints, but muscles. It doesn't hurt to learn as much as you can. Local and global stabilization system. Bracing and drawing in. Learn those. Because I did have a question like that on my test as well. Which one is bracing, which one is drawing in. And like all these exercises right here, learn the red part of it, which will give you instructional safety tips. So I would say learn that as well. And then also, don't be afraid to actually take notes on a piece of paper as well. Whichever best way that you study, I would say. And then just kind of go with the tips that I'm giving. Some of the stuff I've said to my friend that actually helped me kind of like not stress too much about it was, I'll read what I've actually said. Like I said before I actually took the test, I kind of told myself I was going to pass it. So you kind of like speed it to existence, which yes, I still was nervous, but actually making myself say it which a lot of people don't say stuff like that when there's still a chance that you could not pass it. But just speaking it out makes me more confident in myself to actually pass it. Not saying I was, not saying I wasn't, but at the same time, you have that motivation factor that you know you're gonna pass. Because at the end of the day, when you don't say it like that, then it's still that in the back of your mind, like, I'm not gonna pass it, I'm not gonna pass it. Like, just say you're gonna pass it. Like, no matter what, just say you're gonna pass it. Whether if you don't, still, you can come back and take it again. But at the same time, when you say you're gonna pass it, then that brings more confidence to yourself that you're gonna pass it. Another thing is that I disconnected from Nasm in period. I disconnected for a day. Like, and it was it was hard to do because it was the day before my test. Like, today was December 29th, 2018 was the day I took my test, which is today. December 28th, I basically got off work that morning, so I worked night shift. And then I pretty much didn't study all day. Like, not to boast or brag or anything like that. I just pretty much didn't take any study on. I wanted to disconnect my mind from studying. And the day before, actually, that I actually played my game or just took my mind off of Nasm. Because the more you study, like, if you don't know the material between the 3 days leading up to your test, or 2 days or 1 day leading up to your test, you probably don't need to be taking your test. And that might be the hardest truth and realization of it, because you're just not ready. But I would say I just disconnected from it, and I really just set out to not really focus on the material, because of the fact that if I kept focusing on it, which leads to my point, when I kept focusing on it, then I know if I got to the test, I would second guess myself or get stressed about it, and then I'll just I'll forget every single thing. So I let my mind relax, and this is what I'm saying to a friend of mine. Like I said, I had a self-talk with myself, and that's just one thing that you don't need to be doing if you're about to take the test, is stress. Don't stress. Just don't. Another reason that another thing I did was, another thing I kind of noticed on the test was they try to trick you as far as the question was. So when you take your test, one thing that helped me out was I focused on the question, but I mainly focused on the key point of the question. Like, say if they say your feet turn out, but they add extra crap to the sentence, which tries to throw you off. The only thing I focused on was feet turning out. Why are my feet turning out? What is overactive? What is underactive? Or whatever the question says. It just focused on why your feet are turning out. Don't focus on any other stuff in the question. Once you have drilled the question in your mind and it kind of confuses you, try to go back in that question and find the focus and find the main key points. What I mean by that is, if a question is asking you, like a long question is asking you something, but they state your feet turning out in the word overactive, everything else in that sentence doesn't matter really, if that makes sense. Because what they want to know is, do you know why your feet are turning out and what muscle is overactive? So really focus on that, because they will try to throw you off with questions like that. And then also on the test, you can leave notes for yourself as far as like marking a question that you don't know or do know. And then that's another thing I did, was like finding the key points of it and then writing a note and then going back after it and then kind of really sitting there, because I didn't want to waste your time on the test. So I don't want to waste time trying to really focus on what this answer is and then waste time on questions, or waste extra time and then go to the next questions but not have enough time to actually finish them, and it's questions that I already knew but I'm wasting my time on this one question. So you kind of want to be strategic about it. Also, when you take a test on it, try to eliminate the answers that you know aren't right. And that'll help too, because when you eliminate questions that, well, when you eliminate answers that aren't right, and you focus on the ones that could be or potentially be the answer, then that's 2 answers that you don't have to worry about because you know they're not right. And then another thing I focus on, which is, I mean, it's kind of weird for me, but this is how it helped me, like kind of like a stress reliever, where if you know your material or semi know your material and you want to focus on, how can I say this to you? Focus on, not really focus on the number of questions, but when it comes to it, all down to it, yes, focus on the number of questions. So you have, this is how I did it. So you have 120 questions, right? So take away 20 of those, which you're not being scored on good or bad. So if you miss all 20, you're not being scored on. If you get all 20 right, it's not counted for you. So what I did was I eliminated 20 of those questions. Okay, that's 20 questions I don't have to worry about. Yes, take every question important. That's not what I'm saying. Take every, because you don't know which ones they are. So 20 questions you aren't being scored on. Eliminate those. So now you have 100. You have 100 questions that are potentially going to either tell you passed the test or you failed the test. So really focus on all the questions, like I said, because you never know which ones are 20. But just tell yourself that you have 100 questions total that can potentially tell you you failed or passed. So with those 100 questions, all you have to do is get 70% of right, which is 70 questions. So how I did it and how I knew I would pass is that when I got to my 120th question, yes, it's just known fact that you will skip some questions because you're either not sure of or you just don't know it, so you want to skip it, which is best to do. But when I got to my 120th question, I had maybe 20 left that I did not answer, and some of them those I were some of those I was sure about the answer, but I still wanted to kind of go back and read it just in case something really clicked in my mind that I knew it was actually this other answer besides just going to it and then clicking that answer and then leaving it. So I wanted to actually go back and actually thoroughly read the question again. So when you do that and you know that the other questions you did answer are pretty much you're confident about and you knew that answer, then when you get to the 120 questions, the way I did it is I seen that I only had like 20 unanswered, and technically you can miss about 30 that actually count against you, but 50 total. So you can miss 50 answers total, but 30 are really important. So when I realized I had maybe 20 I didn't answer, so that'll be, what is that? That's 100 questions I answered and 20 I didn't. So if you have more than 30 answers you didn't complete, then that kind of gives you not like a leeway, but it kind of gives you an idea of how you're doing, which I don't know if that makes it stressful for some people, but you don't have to do this. But this is how I did it. When I was confident enough to know I only had like 20 left that I needed to answer, and some of those I already knew anyways, but I just wanted to make sure they were right. When you have less than 30, then you kind of potentially know you're going to pass, or you are semi-borderline knowing you're going to pass. So it's not a guarantee still, because you could have the ones you answered could still be wrong. But if you know for sure that you'll have less than 30 that you didn't answer, then that's a good chance you should pass. Not saying you will, but that's a good chance you are on the right track. So that's what kind of made me more confident about me passing, which at times I was getting a little nervous because there was some questions I skipped back to back, and I had to kind of like refocus and kind of breathe. Good thing too also is to breathe. Make sure you don't get overcomplicated with yourself, or not overcomplicated with yourself, but actually not overstressing yourself, because then your mind starts to wander. Like, get your mind back on track, focus on the test in front of you, and then you should be fine. So with that being said, I mean, I hoped some of the ideas that I gave you help. And I pray and hope that you pass your test. And yeah, I mean, if you have any more questions, just hit me up or email me, whatever you want to do. I'll try to help you out with that. But like I said, hope and pray you pass your test. And if you're new to my channel, hit that like button if you enjoyed these ideas, and subscribe. So see you in the next video. Peace. I don't know what I just did. Chill.